The general consensus is that flying can be really expensive and you have to be super rich to own an airplane. Some part of that is true, flying can be expensive, but aircraft ownership is actually not as expensive as most people think. In today's video, we're going to look at a few airplanes that you can purchase for the same price as a brand new Honda Accord. Yes, these airplanes can be bought for $30,000 or less. Let's get into it. The first airplane we're going to look at is the Cessna 150. Now, when you think of Cessnas, you think of one of the earliest manufacturers of airplanes in the United States. The Cessna 150 is a very small, two-seater airplane, but this airplane is an absolute workhorse. Back in 1958, Cessna started producing these birds, and you still have a few thousand of them still flying today. As a matter of fact, training schools use the Cessna 150 to train their new pilots, and the reason being that the Cessna 150 is one of the most forgiving airplanes in general aviation, period. That's why for no power to low time pilots that need to build time, you're always recommended to get a Cessna 150, because of its forgiving behavior, but also because it's one of the most affordable and low-cost airplanes to maintain and own. You can easily find a good working Cessna 150 either on Brainstorm, Trade-A-Plane, or you can check out Controller.com. You can easily find one for $15,000 to $20,000 for a good working airplane. For a well-equipped airplane, maybe safe for IFR or with some glass cockpit, you can find one for $30,000 and a little bit north of that. But again, you don't need all that. You just need your basic six-pack VFR and a good working airplane, which you can easily find for 15 to 20 grand. Maybe the only downside you can find with the 150 is that it's considered slow by some pilots. This airplane cruises around 100 miles per hour, but that's nothing to sneeze at. Even some LSA airplanes today don't go that fast. So for most pilots, I think that's more than enough speed. Now, if you want a little bit more speed and a little bit more useful load, then let's check out the next airplane. Number 2 on the list is the Cessna 172. When you think of the godfather of general aviation aircraft, think of the 172. The airplane is also one of the early birds here in the United States, and this specific model is still being produced by Cessna today. Now, the newest models of the 172 will cost you close to $400,000, but you can get your hands on one of the early models for less than $30,000. Unlike its younger brother, the 150, the Cessna 172 gives you quite a few more options. You have a longer range, a more useful load, and you get those extra 2 seats to fit more people. Even with all the great extra options you get with the 172, this airplane is also just as forgiving as the 150. Okay, you get all those options, but you also get a very safe airplane. That's why you still see a lot of flight schools today using the 172 to train their pilots, one reason being that it's very safe, and also, it's very cheap. It's very low cost to buy one, and it's very low cost to maintain one. There are so many thousands and thousands of Cessna 172s flying in the air today, so maintenance costs in terms of getting parts and fixing things will not be a hassle at all because of their abundance. You can find a basic VFR-equipped 172 today anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000. Now, if you want something with more options or an airplane that's been remodeled or upgraded, then you're looking at closer to $40,000 to $50,000. But nevertheless, you can still find a lot for $25,000 to $30,000 for this airplane. A dirty little secret about the 172, since it's one of the most used airplanes for training purposes, is that you can always do a leaseback with this airplane. Meaning, you can buy one and then lease it to a school, and they pay you for the usage of this airplane. Next on the list is the Piper Cherokee. Now, we've looked at 2 different airplanes that are high-wing airplanes. This is the first low-wing airplane that we're going to look at today. The Piper Cherokee shares the same and very similar behaviors with the first two airplanes I talked about. This airplane was first introduced in the 60s, and just like the Cessnas, there are still a lot of Cherokees flying today and also being used in flight schools. Now, the thing about the Piper Cherokee is that you have several different variations and models. You have the 140, 160, 180, 235, and it goes on and on. The different models come with different engines and horsepower, but the entry level is the 140, which is a superb airplane. It has all the safety characteristics, is a very forgiving airplane, is very low cost to maintain, and very low cost to buy. You can get a used early model Piper Cherokee in today's market anywhere from $20,000 to $28,000 to $29,000. Even an IFR-equipped airplane, you can find these airplanes for less than $30,000. Now, one tiny little complaint I will make about the Piper Cherokee is that it only has one door. It's a matter of convenience for this airplane. If you're going to carry passengers, everyone has to scoot in through one door, which is on the passenger side. But other than that, this is a superb airplane, very low entry, very cheap to buy, and very cheap to maintain. Next airplane on the list is the Grumman American Trainer. Now, unlike the Cessnas, this is not your typical training airplane, but it does share similar characteristics. This airplane is also small, a two-seater, but you have a lot of good options. You get a lot more useful load at over 1,000 pounds, and you can fly anywhere from 300 nautical miles to 400 nautical miles with your tanks filled up. The Grumman does have a small Lycoming engine, similar to the Cessnas, but you get a little bit more performance with this airplane. I mentioned the useful load earlier. You get more useful load, and depending on your power setting, you can fly a little bit longer. The good thing about this airplane, though, is the fuel consumption. You're getting around 6 gallons per hour while cruising at over 100 knots in this airplane. To me, this airplane actually looks the best. When you think of the looks, the Cessnas, they look more like your mom's car or an SUV when you compare airplanes to cars. But the Grumman looks a little bit more sporty, something that a young pilot could use. And the most attractive thing about this airplane is the price. You can find a good working airplane anywhere from $18,000 to $22,000. That's cheaper than most new Accords or even Corollas that you can find in the market today. The last airplane we're going to look at today is the Sonex. So, the prior 4 airplanes I listed are all certified airplanes. You have some Cessnas, some Pipers, and we have the Grumman. The Sonex is the only airplane on this list that is home-built. Now, if you know anything about the Sonex airplane, they have some of the most affordable kits in the market. For pilots who are looking to get into a project, building and flying an experimental airplane, I think this is a great option for you. 1. This airplane is very, very affordable to build on your own, and you can find a completely built airplane for less than $30,000. Easily, you can find the Sonex right now for $20,000, $22,000, $24,000, or $25,000 on barnstormers.com. But again, if you're going to purchase one of these, you have to do your homework properly because this is not a certified airplane, this is experimental. That means somebody else built it, either from their garage or with the help of a factory. But nevertheless, it's an airplane, and you can fly it for such an affordable price. Unlike the Cessnas, the Grumman, or the Pipers, which are much older, we're talking about airplanes built in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, the Sonex is different. You can find one that was built a year ago for $25,000. This airplane only seats 2, with a useful load of 350 pounds, but it can stay in the air long. You can fly this thing for over 500 miles, and you're cruising at over 130 miles per hour. If you're the type of pilot that loves to have fun, maybe do some aerobatics, the Sonex is definitely a great option to get into. Very low entry, very low maintenance, I would trade my Honda Accord for this airplane any day.